Hi, ArcFieldWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Tuesday morning, September the 24th. Certainly continues to look like a hurricane threat for the Gulf Coast of Florida. A possible landfall late in the day on Thursday, and certainly a major hurricane is on the table here. That is a Category 3 classification or even higher. Again, late in the day on Thursday, looks like around the Big Bend region of Florida. We'll go into all the details in a moment here with some forecast maps. But first, I kind of wanted to lay out the overall scenario, at least the way I'm thinking things will progress from this point on. First of all, we continue to have a strong tropical wave yet to be a named tropical storm. Probably later on today, it will become a named tropical storm, and that name would be Helene. It looks like it'll probably progress right through this area. Yucatan Peninsula region of Mexico right here, western tip of Cuba right here. It looks like it will stay over the warm waters of the transition area between the Caribbean Sea and the Gulf of Mexico. That is important. That is kind of certainly a warning to all residents along the Gulf Coast, because the fuel for tropical systems is the energy coming from underneath when it's moving on top of very warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico or the Caribbean Sea. When it moves over land, that fuel source is cut off and tropical systems tend to weaken. So the fact that this looks like it'll just squeeze through these two land masses and stay over water is not a good sign. It is a favorable sign for intensification. It will continue to move in this general fashion and likely then turn right here towards the Big Bend region. And this is the Big Bend region of Florida right here, with Apalachicola right on the coast, Appalachian Bay right in this area right here. And it looks like possible landfall, perhaps as a Category 3 major hurricane late in the day on Thursday. Now, you can't be completely focused in on where it would make landfall. Certainly all areas down to Tampa Bay could have a strong storm surge. The movement of this system is in this fashion, north to northeast at this particular time. And in this kind of a scenario, those areas to the right of where the storm actually makes landfall will have kind of a higher storm surge than those areas to the left. So this is the area of concern right in here in terms of storm surge, all the way down potentially to the Tampa Bay, Clearwater, St. Petersburg area. Basically, you have counterclockwise flow of air around low pressure areas. And with the movement in this fashion here, you kind of have that additive effect of the forward speed of the storm and the southwesterly winds on the right side of where it makes landfall. That is why the storm surge right in this area can be the most dangerous area here. Again, from around Apalachicola, south and east, all the way down to Tampa Bay, Clearwater. By the way, we have a video on this on our Meteo 101 page here. There's a video that I made on storm surge and exactly where the system makes landfall and which side. In this particular case, on the right side is worse in terms of potential storm surge. That video was made after Hurricane Sandy slammed into the New Jersey coastline. After it makes landfall in the likely in the Big Bend region of Florida, it will not go all the way up the eastern seaboard. That is not going to happen here because of this tremendous blocking high that continues to exist over southeastern part of Canada. Instead, it looks like it will move in this fashion here, then kind of grind to a halt and end up turning towards the north and west, and probably ending up over this area by the end of the weekend. Again, because of that very strong blocking high over southern part of Canada, it will not ride right up along the Atlantic seaboard. Now, there's another player on the scene here, an upper level trough kind of dropping in south and east into the south central states. And for a while here, these two systems here, the remnants of the tropical low and this incoming, let's call it a continental upper level low, may kind of do a dance around each other, kind of rotate around each other. Let's clear the deck here and show exactly what I'm talking about. The tropical low and may kind of rotate around in this fashion while the upper level low kind of comes in this fashion. They tend to repel each other. This was all written up by a Japanese meteorologist about 100 years ago named Fujiwara, and we refer to this, meteorologists refer to this rotation around each other as the Fujiwara effect. Basically two separate low pressure areas, especially with regard to tropical systems like hurricanes, can repel each other and do kind of a dance around each other instead of consolidating into one, at least not initially consolidating into one. So these two may end up doing some kind of a rotation later in the week into the early part of the weekend. Again, what we refer to as the Fujiwara effect. But a big player is that blocking high pressure to the north Andes over southeastern Canada, south central Canada, that will prevent this system from riding right up along the Atlantic seaboard. By the way, if in fact this system makes a landfall as a major in Florida later in the day on Thursday, that is certainly not unprecedented. We've had about 8 major hurricane Florida landfalls since the year 2000, and one as recent as last year, 2023, Idalia. And the year before that, 2022, we had a major hurricane landfall in Florida, Ian. So this is certainly not unprecedented, but nonetheless, it could be a serious situation, especially from Apalachicola down to about Tampa Bay. What is kind of unusual is if indeed this makes landfall, that would be third or fourth landfalling storm already, and here we are at the end of September, still with maybe a month to go in the tropical season. So we've had 3 or 4, this will make, I think, the 4th hurricane that makes landfall in the continental U.S. Now, I wanted to kind of walk through a couple of forecast maps here just to show the potential of this system here, not only in Florida, but down across Georgia and the Carolinas. We have hurricane force winds on the table here, certainly for those couple of states, Florida, Georgia, maybe even South Carolina, for example, and some tremendous rainfall all the way up into the southern Appalachians over the next few days. First of all, this is from last night's 060 run of the GFS with respect to the maximum wind gust here going through the next few days, through the life cycle of this particular soon-to-be hurricane. First of all, Tampa Bay, right in this area right here, you can see some 70 to 75 mile per hour wind gusts here as depicted on this particular model run, up to 82 right here in the Big Bend region of Florida. And look at these wind gusts all the way up into Georgia, 80 plus mile per hour potentially, 70 plus mile per hour into South Carolina. So certainly this is indeed going to be a news-making event here. Again, possible landfall as a major Category 3 or even higher hurricane late in the day on Thursday, right in this area right here. But it's going to be a large scale with impact all the way down, certainly to Tampa Bay and all the way up into Georgia and South Carolina. Now, take a look here at some of the rainfall totals. This is from the 0Z run of the European model, last night's run of the European model. We could see some tremendous rainfall, of course, along Florida's Gulf coastal section here, but all the way up into the southern Appalachians, there could be some tremendous rainfall here. This is depicting as much as 8, 9, 10 inches of rain in parts of the Tennessee Valley, the southern Appalachians here. So certainly not only is a tremendous rain on the table for Florida, but again, all the way up through Georgia, the Carolinas, in this particular case, all the way up into the Tennessee Valley region. Now, before we take a look at last night's GFS model run, let's take a look here at the latest satellite imagery loop. Now, yesterday morning, you may recall, we had kind of 2 separate areas of showers and thunderstorms. One was located over here, and the other up to its north and east over here just south of Cuba. Kind of consolidated in the overnight hours. Still not a named tropical storm. It should become a named tropical storm, I would guess, by later today or tonight. It's certainly, if not by late today, tonight, by the day on Wednesday. But here is a very impressive looking area of showers and thunderstorms still over those very warm waters of the western Caribbean Sea. This is Cuba right here, and of course this is Florida right here. So this will continue to consolidate, will continue to intensify. The latest observation had maximum sustained winds right around 35 miles per hour, so not too far away from being a named tropical storm, which would be Helene. So again, still focused in on the western Caribbean Sea, where sea surface temperatures are easily 80 plus degrees, fully supportive of the development of a hurricane, not only warm waters in the Caribbean Sea, but the Gulf of Mexico this time of year. Well, let's take a look at last night's 0Z run of the GFS. By the way, GFS, let's give kudos to the GFS. GFS, about a week ago, suggested the possibility of this tropical system squeezing through these two land masses, Yucatan Peninsula region of Mexico to the south and west, and the western tip of Cuba to the north and east. In fact, it looks like it very well could have, not a guarantee by any means at this point, but it looks like the center of what will become a tropical storm soon may stay over these open waters of the Caribbean Sea entering into the Gulf of Mexico. By the way, Hurricane Wilma actually crossed over western Cuba, this back in 2005, that super active year of 2005. Wilma did cross over the western part of Cuba and then intensified very rapidly and ended up moving in this fashion, had a tremendous impact on the Keys, for example, and made landfall up the coast. So even if a system were to go over the landmass of Cuba, it would just be a temporary weakening. And again, Wilma back in 2005 did indeed cross over in a weakened state, but then rapidly intensified once it moved back out over those open waters of the southeastern Gulf of Mexico, and it had a big impact in the southeastern part of Florida all the way down to the Keys. Now, let's clear the map here and move forward here, and we'll talk about this Fujiwara effect here. Let's move forward here. And here's that upper level low diving into the south central states from the north and west. This is not a tropical system. This is had its origins up in the northern plains and before that in Canada. It's dropping to the south and east. Also, take a look here. This is that blocking ridge up over southeastern Canada. What we're looking at are the 500 millibar height anomaly forecast maps, again using the 0Z run of the GFS. Here's your blocking high to the north and east, and here's that trough that's dropping to the south and east. And at this particular time, you have the reflection of 500 millibars of what will be likely at this time Tropical Storm Helene, getting ready to spill out over into the Gulf of Mexico. Let's now move forward here. And here we go by midday on Wednesday, and just tremendous blocking throughout Canada as we go through the midweek into Thursday. And here we go with this Fujiwara effect. Again, you have this low pressure area in the upper part of the atmosphere that is not a tropical. This is a continental type of low, and here comes the what will be a hurricane at this particular time. And we'll just move forward here and watch the kind of the rotation around here, this Fujiwara effect. It just moves up in this fashion and tends to rotate around. Let's backtrack a little bit and take a look. Instead of two lows, especially two tropical lows, kind of consolidating into one, they tend to repel against each other, at least for a while, and do kind of a dance around each other. Again, this will kind of move in this fashion, and this will move more or less in this fashion, and that is what meteorologists refer to as the Fujiwara effect here. So let's again go forward here. Here comes that hurricane. The remnants of it will move right through Georgia into South Carolina, and instead of moving north and east through the Mid-Atlantic, through the northeast U.S., which certainly could happen this time of the year, because of this tremendous blocking ridge over the Hudson Bay region of Canada, it will not be able to do that. It will instead turn to the north and west, and ultimately end up as a weakening system over the Ohio Valley. Then it gets absorbed into that upper level low. And by the time we get to the early part of the upcoming weekend, we have a vigorous upper level low that absorbed the dying tropical system into one strong upper level feature right over the middle Mississippi Valley as we begin the upcoming weekend. It's still very, very strong high pressure ridging centered over the Hudson Bay region of Canada. By the way, if this were the middle of winter, this kind of a blocking high would likely produce very cold weather across much of the eastern U.S., sending cold air down across the Atlantic seaboard. This is a kind of a blocking high that I tend to monitor closely during the winter season. And the fact that we have kind of a repeating pattern here in the fall suggests possibility of this occurring quite a bit in the winter, because they tend to repeat themselves from the fall to the winter. And this, by the way, is a very similar scenario to Hurricane Francine a little earlier in the tropical season, in that it ended up right over this particular region, again blocking high to the north for Francine. The moisture associated with Francine was not able to move to the north and east into the mid-Atlantic or into the northeast, similar to this upcoming system. Well, let's go quickly through the surface forecast maps from the 0Z run of the GFS, and here comes that system again, squeezing through that little area remaining over the water between Yucatan and between Cuba, and then spills out over to the Gulf of Mexico and continues its intensification process. Here we are late in the day on Wednesday, and it looks like it's headed for right in this area right here, the Big Bend region, Apalachicola down to Tampa Bay, likely significant impact here. Again, it could reach landfall here as a major hurricane. That is Category 3, an outside chance even of Category 4 by later in the day on Thursday. And of course, don't just focus in on where it makes landfall. This will be a large storm and will have a big impact along much of Florida's Gulf Coast. And here we go into Thursday evening. It slides northward through Georgia into South Carolina. And meanwhile, that second upper level low, you can kind of see it here depicted by these thickness lines right here. This is where that upper level low, the continental upper level low, is. And instead of this system going up in this fashion, because of that tremendous high right here, it will tend to be forced to go in this direction and ultimately dissipate here and get absorbed by this upper level feature here. But before it does that, it'll do this kind of rotation around, this dance around the old Fujiwara effect. And here we go. By the time we get to Friday, it's now centered over the Ohio Valley, kind of tends to dissipate and get absorbed by that very strong upper level low. And one other thing I'd like to mention here, the likelihood of rain making it up into the mid-Atlantic region has increased, in my opinion, in the overnight hours. What I'm seeing now, the trend is for a little bit farther north of a push, potentially into the mid-Atlantic region. Certainly Virginia, D.C. could get in on some rain from this tropical, the remnants of the tropical system. Again, it won't make it all the way up into New England because of that upper level ridge over Canada, but there could be some rain. And the GFS is really not showing all that much, but I think there's an increasing chance of some rainfall making its way at least into the southern mid-Atlantic region at the end of the week, going into the upper part, the early part of the weekend. And here comes that consolidation, the strong low sitting over the middle Mississippi Valley, early part of this weekend. And here we go all the way into Sunday, still some remnants of what was a tropical system, and then kind of consolidating into one upper level low right over the middle Mississippi Valley, the Tennessee Valley, by the second half of the upcoming weekend. Still large high pressure to the north. So a lot going on here. You don't often talk about the Fujiwara effect, but the most important feature here is we could have a major hurricane hit around the Big Bend region of Florida, probably Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening time frame. Stay on full alert all along Florida's Gulf Coast, and that includes down to Tampa Bay, Clearwater, St. Petersburg. That's it for now. Stay tuned to updates at arcfieldweather.com later today. That's it for now. I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.